G'day people, I'm Sharyn and welcome. Today I want to talk to you about embroidery machines. If you've got no experience with them at all, you've got to start somewhere. And maybe this is where you start. Embroidery machines are the ones that can do this kind of thing. So putting names onto garments, the sort of thing that you would go to a shop perhaps to do. When people get embroidery machines, this is often where they start. Lots of names on lots of gifts for lots of people. And I still use mine that way, even though I've had embroidery machines now for over 30 years. Aside from names, what can you do? There are lots of designs that are available either on the internet or through your dealer that will go into your sewing machine and allow you to do this kind of thing. These designs are by a company called Hatched in Africa. They are from the apricot blush quilt, which they put out about 15 years ago. The designs are still beautiful and they still work. What I tend to use my machines for is quilting and using them in Quilt As You Go. So I make designs and then I stitch them out on machines, and I have a lot of fun doing it. I'm going to talk today about 3 different kinds of machines. 2 of them I can show you, one I can't because I don't have one here at the moment. The first kind are sewing machines that are also embroidery machines, and I've got 2 examples. This is quite an elderly machine. It's a combined sewing and embroidery machine. So I can do regular sewing there. It's got a big screen because it can do embroidery and it wants to show me all the stuff I can do with my embroidery. But it also does regular sewing. You can see up there lots of stitches. This end of the machine, flywheel, same as normal. It's got an AT-APC card in here. I can connect it direct to a computer, or I can connect it to I think it was a CD-ROM reader. If I go around to this end, that is the piece that moves when I'm doing embroidery. So it's always part of the machine. It moves out and left and right. That was one style of combined embroidery and sewing machine. This one is a newer model of embroidery and sewing machine. So I can still do regular sewing with it, but I can also do embroidery. Big screen, once again to help me with doing my embroidery things. On this end, we've got where we put in the power plug, the foot control. This is for differential feed on the even feed foot. Stylus, flywheel. Down here I can connect direct to a computer, or I've got 2 USB ports. The machine has still got all of the standard things that come on the machine, the needle up down button and all those things, because it's a sewing machine. Around the back, however, you can see we don't have the piece that would operate an embroidery machine. On this machine, it's a separate piece. Here's the piece. I put it here, match up the 2 black points and push it in. This arm then comes out. So on this machine you need to leave plenty of room at the back for the arm. The other machine you did need to leave room for the arm to move around, but not near as much as this one requires. This machine can be operated with that there all the time. Some machines, instead of putting the embroidery unit at the back, put it at the left end. And that's a difference. Different brands of machines do it different ways. Different models of machines do it different ways. This one's at the back, some are at the left. If you're looking at a machine that does both sewing and embroidery, the prices go up as the embroidery units get bigger and the hoops get bigger. So if you want to do large designs, you have to pay more money for them. Combined embroidery and sewing machines are fabulous. They only take up as much room as one machine, although sometimes it's a very large machine, but they can do both things. The downside is that sometimes you have to wait for an embroidery to finish before you can do a little bit of sewing. The more money you spend, usually the bigger the hoops the machine is able to use, and hence the bigger the size of the embroideries you're able to do. These machines are fun, and this is what the first one that I got 30 plus years ago was able to do, but it only had designs about this size. Those 2 machines only have 1 needle. and each time their design requires a different colour, you have to rethread them. The same is true of the next group of machines, which unfortunately I don't have one here to show you. The next group of machines are the embroidery only machines. And I'm talking here about machines that look pretty similar, but they don't include the needle up down button or the lock stitch button or any of your standard buttons that you would have on a sewing machine, because they can't sew. They can only do embroideries. If you've got a machine like this and all you want to do is put names on shirts, yes you can. However, if you want to sew a seam, no you can't. The machines will often have a place inside the harp space, so the bit that opens out in the machine, and that is often where the hoops will attach. Once again, this group of machines, as you get more expensive, you generally get bigger hoops. The final group of machines that I want to talk about are the multi-needle machines. This is a multi-needle machine. And I want you to see first that even though there's a lot of wires and things around, it actually is the same. Needles down there, body of the machine, flywheel back here. It's a sewing machine. It just happens to be used a different way. This is embroidery only. When I turn it this way, this will be the way most people will see the machine as it's being used. The screen is here. This one's got 4 needles, and all of the take-up levers and things, instead of being on this side, they're on this side. When the machine is sewing, only 1 needle at a time will be in operation. Generally it starts on the right and then it will work its way across. So as you are sewing, if you needed a particular range of colours, you would generally go 1, 2, 3, 4. You can tell it to do it in other orders if you like. This is a hoop for the machine. You can see it's quite a bit thicker and more robust than a hoop on most of the embroidery machines, domestic embroidery machines. I can easily put a thick towel into this hoop. So if I was going to be embroidering names on towels, I do it on this machine. Tied on at the top a new thread for this needle. In order to get it through, I disengage the tension, pull the thread here, and I've now got the new thread coming out. These machines you don't have to thread by individually threading everything all the time. The other machines, because they're single needle, every time it wants a change of colour you have to rethread the machine. This one you don't necessarily have to do that. If, for example, I've just put green here, if this design was going to go green, white, yellow, green, the machine will do that automatically. It'll come back to the first needle, and I don't need to have the green move to the next needle along. It only stops when none of those 4 needles are going to give it the colour it wants. Like all embroidery machines, it has no idea what thread colour I've got in here. Personal preference, what I want to do, but it assumes that the colours I've got in here are the ones that it's asked for. On this side of the machine, which would be the back of a regular machine, I've got my place to plug it in. I've got my bobbin winding here. There is a very large spool of bobbin thread for this machine. It is a bobbin thread that can't be used on other machines. It's too springy. Quick look at the display here. I've got space to put in a USB key. I've got space for an ATA PC card because this is quite an elderly machine now. This is where I can turn my bobbin winding on. I've got various controls. It's all a touch screen. It's a wonderful machine. 4 needles. There is also a model that has 7 needles. I would just like to bring to your attention, if you're thinking about getting one of these do not use regular needles. They use a needle that has a round shank, and when you put it into the machine you have to put it in with the groove at the front down here, not at the back. The hoops on that big 4 needle machine are very much more robust than the hoops for my standard embroidery machines. That means it's much easier to put big items like towels into the hoops. They actually go in there and they stay firm, they don't pop out. The person most likely to benefit from having a machine with multiple needles is somebody who wants a small business. So if you're planning to do embroidery on lots of something for some reason, maybe you want to do things for wedding guests, or maybe you're doing things for sports teams, that kind of thing, a multi-needle machine is probably going to be best for you. It's also possible with that machine to rearrange the hoops so that it will go through a shirt without sewing the back of it to the front, or you can stitch on sleeves without stitching the sleeve shut. There are some really nice things on that machine if what you're wanting to do is more industrial, more of a business kind of thing. For those people who have not ventured into the world of embroidery, I hope this has given you a little bit of information. I am going to be borrowing an embroidery only machine in a couple of months, and hopefully I will get lots of filming done then of how to operate it. In the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.